the gentle clink of milk bottles on doorsteps at dawn, steam rising from proper china teacups at precisely 4 o'clock, children's voices echoing off cobblestone streets as families strolled together in their Sunday finest. If you remember when life moved to these gentler rhythms, you already know Britain wasn't always rushing toward the next notification. Our ancestors lived by customs so deeply woven into daily life that abandoning them would have seemed unthinkable. Traditions that created connection, demanded patience, and turned ordinary moments into cherished rituals. Picture your grandmother's bewilderment at grabbing coffee on the run instead of sitting for proper tea. Imagine your grandfather's shock at ordering groceries from a screen rather than chatting with shopkeepers who knew his family's needs by heart. These weren't just different habits, they were different ways of being human together. Stay with us, because you might just rediscover traditions that made life slower, sweeter, and surprisingly more connected than anything we've created since. Before alarm clocks stirred most households, Britain awakened to the gentle symphony of milk rounds, the soft clip-clop of horse hooves, the musical clink of glass bottles, and the quiet whistle of milkmen who knew every family's story. Picture those misty mornings, your milkman arriving precisely at 6:30, leaving exactly what each household needed without ever being asked. Mrs. Patterson at number 7 always took 2 pints of gold top and a block of butter on Fridays. The young couple next door preferred skimmed milk but splurged on cream when expecting guests. This wasn't just delivery, it was neighborhood intelligence. Milkmen noticed when curtains stayed drawn too long, when bottles piled up uncollected, when new babies meant extra orders. They carried messages between neighbors, checked on elderly residents, and served as the community's unofficial social workers. Children would race outside in pajamas, begging for rides on the milk float. Housewives in curlers and dressing gowns would emerge for quick gossip sessions, learning who was poorly, who'd had visitors, whose son had returned from abroad. The milkman knew your family's rhythms better than you did. Holiday arrangements, party preparations, financial struggles, all communicated through subtle changes in milk orders. No forms to fill, no passwords to remember, just human relationships built on decades of daily trust. Today's online grocery deliveries would baffle these milkmen. Anonymous drivers dropping packages at doorsteps, never learning names or needs, missing the human stories that once made every round a neighborhood novel. We've gained convenience but lost something precious, the daily reminder that someone cared enough to notice whether you were thriving or struggling, one milk bottle at a time. At precisely 4 o'clock every afternoon, Britain performed a miracle that would shock modern productivity experts. The entire nation stopped working for tea. Picture the scene. Factory floors falling silent as workers gathered around steaming urns. Office clerks abandoning their desks for proper china cups and saucers. Even the most demanding bosses pausing their dictation because tea time was sacred, inviolable, absolutely non-negotiable. This wasn't a coffee break grabbed between tasks. This was ceremony. Loose tea measured carefully, water boiled to perfection, milk added in proper proportions. Whether in grand drawing rooms or humble kitchen parlors, the ritual remained identical. Proper cups, proper timing, proper respect for the moment. Conversations flowed over shared biscuits, not hurried small talk, but real connection. Family news, neighborhood gossip, gentle debates about weather and politics. Children learned the art of listening while adults savored 20 minutes of genuine pause in their day. The beauty lay in its universality. Aristocrats and laborers observed identical customs, creating shared national rhythm that bound communities together. 4 o'clock meant stepping away from urgency, honoring tradition, choosing connection over productivity. Even during wartime, tea time persevered. Bombs might fall, but at 4 o'clock, Britain gathered for tea, a defiant act of normalcy that preserved civilization's gentle heartbeat amid chaos. Today's grab-and-go coffee culture would horrify these tea devotees. Disposable cups drunk while walking, tea bags dunked hastily in lukewarm water. Our ancestors would see this as barbarism, the destruction of one of life's most civilizing rituals. We've gained efficiency, but lost the art of stopping, of marking time with something beautiful and shared, of believing that some moments deserve protection from productivity's relentless demands. Every Sunday morning, Britain transformed. Behind lace curtains, families performed weekly metamorphoses that would astonish our casual modern world, the ritual of becoming their finest selves. Picture the preparation. Fathers buffing shoes until they gleamed like mirrors, mothers pressing shirts with military precision, children squirming into uncomfortable but magnificent clothes reserved for God and community. The transformation wasn't just clothing, it was armor of respect, worn to honor the day and each other. Sunday best meant sacrifice. Families who owned 3 outfits reserved the finest for church, special occasions, and visiting relatives. These weren't fashion statements, but declarations of dignity, proof that even modest households possessed something beautiful, something worthy of their highest aspirations. The clothes carried stories, wedding suits worn for christenings and funerals, dresses passed between sisters, altered lovingly to fit each generation, children's outfits purchased months in advance, grown into gradually treasured like family heirlooms. The weekly ritual created community theater. Neighbors emerged from identical terraced houses looking like different people entirely. Shop assistants transformed into elegant ladies, laborers becoming distinguished gentlemen. Sunday clothes created Sunday selves, versions of themselves worthy of their finest dreams. Churches filled with this weekly pageant of respectful splendor. Families who struggled financially all week presented themselves as prosperity incarnate, united in belief that some occasions demanded your absolute best effort. Modern casual dress codes would shock these Sunday performers. Jeans in church, trainers for special occasions. Our ancestors would interpret this as cultural surrender, abandoning the beautiful fiction that looking your best was a gift you gave the world. We've gained comfort, but lost something magical. The weekly reminder that we could be more elegant, more dignified, more beautiful than our everyday selves required. Long before friend requests and status updates, British social life operated through an intricate system that would make modern networking seem chaotic. The elegant art of calling cards and proper visits. Picture the ritual: delicate cardboard rectangles precisely printed with names and addresses, carried in silver cases like precious currency. These weren't just contact information. They were social passports, determining who could visit whom, when, and under what circumstances. The etiquette was breathtakingly complex. Unmarried ladies left cards only for other ladies. Gentlemen could call upon families only after formal introduction. New residents spent months establishing their calling credentials, gradually building networks through carefully orchestrated social exchanges. Tuesday afternoons became neighborhood theater. Ladies in finest afternoon dresses would receive visitors, while others made carefully timed calls, never staying too long, never arriving uninvited, always observing precise protocols that governed who spoke first, where everyone sat, what topics were appropriate. The cards themselves told stories. Turned-down corners indicated personal delivery rather than servant-delivered formality. Multiple cards left for different family members showed serious social investment. Failed to return calls appropriately, and your social standing crumbled faster than overcooked scones. Children learned these rituals like mathematics: the proper length of morning calls, the distinction between receiving days and private time, the delicate dance of social advancement through careful visiting strategies. Modern social media would bewilder these calling card strategists. Instant connection with strangers, public broadcasting of private thoughts. They'd see our digital relationships as impossibly crude, lacking the patience, respect, and beautiful complexity that made friendship an art form requiring genuine investment. We've gained global connection, but lost the intimate choreography that made local relationships feel like privileges earned through proper effort and gracious behavior. Every evening at 7 o'clock, British families performed a ritual that would mystify our device-obsessed world. They gathered in one room, around one source of entertainment, sharing stories as a family unit. Picture the scene. Parents settling into worn armchairs, children sprawling on hearth rugs, grandmother claiming her favorite spot by the wireless set, that magical wooden box that brought the entire world into their front parlor. The room fell silent as voices emerged from the glowing dial, transforming ordinary evenings into shared adventures. This wasn't background noise or individual entertainment. The wireless demanded attention, imagination, participation. Families listened to mystery serials together, debating clues during commercial breaks. Comedy shows produced genuine family laughter, not polite chuckles, but the kind of shared joy that made memories stick for decades. Children's imaginations flourished in ways modern screens can't replicate. Radio dramas painted pictures in their minds. Castles materialized from sound effects. Heroes gained faces from their own creativity. Adventures felt more real because they helped create them mentally. The programs created national conversations. Everyone heard the same comedy catchphrases, followed identical mystery series, shared collective experiences that bound communities together. Monday morning discussions revolved around Sunday night's entertainment, creating social currency that transcended class boundaries. Even the ritual of choosing programs required family democracy. Father might prefer news, mother enjoyed light entertainment, children wanted adventure stories, negotiations that taught compromise, patience, and consideration for others' preferences. Today's individual streaming choices would horrify these wireless families. Everyone watching different content on separate devices, they'd see this as the death of family culture, the abandonment of shared stories that created shared understanding and collective memory. We've gained infinite choice, but lost something irreplaceable, the nightly reminder that the best entertainment comes from experiencing stories together. In an era that would shock modern daters, young British couples conducted romance under the watchful gaze of entire neighborhoods. And somehow, love flourished more beautifully than any dating app could deliver. Picture the scene. A young man arriving at precisely 7 o'clock, dressed in his finest suit, to collect a young lady for their weekly walk out. Her parents greeting him at the door, her younger siblings giggling from behind curtains, neighbors subtly observing from their gardens as the couple strolled arm in arm down familiar streets. This wasn't surveillance, it was community investment. Everyone knew who was courting whom, how seriously, and whether the match seemed promising. Shopkeepers offered knowing smiles, elderly neighbors shared approving nods, and children followed at respectful distances, absorbing lessons about proper romance. The pace was gloriously unhurried. Couples walked the same routes week after week, past the parish church, around the village green, along tree-lined lanes, talking about everything and nothing. No pressure for instant chemistry, no awkward restaurant silences, just gentle conversation that revealed character gradually, naturally. Chaperoned visits to each other's families created deeper understanding. Potential suitors learned how their sweethearts treated elderly relatives, helped with household tasks, interacted with children. Romance developed within real life, not artificial dating scenarios. The community's gentle oversight provided protection and guidance. Unsuitable matches were discouraged through subtle social pressure, while promising couples received encouragement and support. Everyone felt invested in successful relationships because stable marriages strengthened entire neighborhoods. Modern dating apps would bewilder these walking-out romantics. Swiping through strangers' photos, meeting people with no community connections, they'd see our approach as dangerous isolation, romance divorced from the social fabric that made relationships meaningful and sustainable. We've gained privacy, but lost something precious: the patient courtship that allowed love to grow slowly, safely, supported by communities that cared about lasting happiness rather than instant gratification. During Britain's darkest hours, something extraordinary bloomed in the most unlikely places: rows of vegetables sprouting from bomb-damaged lots, tomatoes climbing garden walls, and carrots growing where roses once reigned supreme. Picture the transformation: pristine front lawns replaced by practical potato patches, flower beds surrendering to cabbages and onions. Children who once played cricket now learned to distinguish between seedlings and weeds, their small hands helping tend crops that might feed the family through winter shortages. This wasn't just gardening, it was patriotic duty wrapped in soil and sunshine. Every cabbage grown at home meant more food for soldiers abroad. Every successful harvest was a small victory against rationing, a thumb in the eye of enemy submarines trying to starve Britain into submission. The knowledge sharing created unexpected community bonds. Bank managers consulted dustmen about pest control, while shop assistants taught aristocrats proper composting techniques. Social barriers dissolved over shared struggles with slugs and weather, creating friendships that might never have formed in peacetime's rigid class structure. Children absorbed skills that connected them to life's essential rhythms. They learned that food came from patient work, not just shop shelves. Summer afternoons meant weeding and watering. Autumn brought harvesting celebrations. Winter required careful preservation of precious produce. Neighbors competed friendly over who grew the largest marrows, shared seeds across garden fences, and pooled knowledge about extending growing seasons. The allotment movement flourished as communities reclaimed unused land, transforming vacant lots into productive partnerships. Today's reliance on global food systems would shock these victory gardeners. Vegetables flown thousands of miles, families who couldn't grow a single meal. They'd see our disconnect from food production as dangerous vulnerability, the abandonment of essential skills that once made Britain self-sufficient. We've gained convenience, but lost the satisfaction of eating food we've grown ourselves, the community bonds forged over shared harvests. When bank holidays arrived, Britain transformed into a nation on the move. Families boarding overcrowded trains with enough provisions for Arctic expeditions, all bound for seaside towns that welcomed them with open arms and questionable weather. Picture the preparation: mothers packing elaborate picnics days in advance, fathers consulting railway timetables with military precision, children practically vibrating with excitement about their annual adventure to Brighton, Blackpool, or Bournemouth. These weren't casual outings, they were pilgrimages to pleasure, sacred journeys that defined British summer. The trains became festivals on wheels, carriages packed with families sharing sandwiches, playing card games, and singing popular songs while countryside rolled past steamy windows. Strangers became temporary friends, united by shared destination and collective determination to enjoy themselves despite inevitable complications. Seaside towns prepared for these invasions like medieval cities, welcoming returning armies. Boarding houses hung vacancies signs, donkey ride operators polished their signs, and pier entertainers rehearsed their acts for audiences desperate for simple pleasure after months of routine. The beach rituals were magnificently predictable. Fathers rolling up trouser legs to paddle in freezing water, mothers organizing elaborate tea services on sand-covered blankets, children building ambitious castles while grandparents dozed in striped deck chairs. These trips created shared national memories. Everyone knew the joy of winning cheap trinkets at pier arcades, the disappointment of rain-soaked picnics, the exhausted contentment of train journeys home with sandy shoes and sunburned noses. Modern international holidays would puzzle these bank holiday adventurers. Flying to Spain for weekend breaks? They'd see our global travel as missing the point, losing the collective experience that made even disappointing British seaside trips feel like national celebrations. We've gained exotic destinations but lost something essentially British, the shared ritual that made simple pleasures feel like magnificent adventures worth anticipating all year. In every British neighborhood stood a magical establishment that served as general store, community center, and unofficial social services office. The corner shop, presided over by someone who knew your family's secrets better than you remembered them yourself. Picture walking into Mr. Henderson's shop, bells jingling overhead, shelves packed from floor to ceiling with everything from penny sweets to paraffin, and behind the counter, a man who could predict your shopping list before you'd spoken a word. The usual for your mum then, and perhaps some of those digestives she likes for Sunday tea. This wasn't just shopkeeping, it was neighborhood stewardship. Corner shopkeepers maintained mental databases that would impress modern computers. Who preferred which brands? Whose family had dietary restrictions? Which households struggled financially and might need discreet credit arrangements during difficult weeks? The tick book was an institution of trust. Families could purchase necessities on credit with payments settled weekly or monthly without contracts, interest rates, or legal complications. A handshake and honest reputation provided better security than any modern banking system. Children learned life lessons between these crowded aisles. Shopkeepers taught proper manners, fair dealing, and community responsibility. Penny candy required careful decision-making. Pocket money demanded budgeting skills, and running errands for elderly neighbors earned both sweets and character development. The shop served as information exchange central. News traveled faster through corner shops than any newspaper. Who was expecting babies? Whose relatives were visiting? Which families needed extra support during illness or unemployment? Today's anonymous supermarket shopping would horrify these community custodians. Self-service checkouts, loyalty cards instead of personal relationships, they'd see our efficient systems as humanity's loss, the replacement of caring individuals with cold convenience. We've gained choice and lower prices, but lost something irreplaceable. The daily reminder that commerce could be personal, that shopping could strengthen community bonds rather than simply fulfilling individual needs. Every Monday evening, British households transformed into workshops where damaged items received second chances, worn clothing gained extended life, and families gathered around kitchen tables armed with needles, thread, and the unshakable belief that everything deserved repair before replacement. Picture the scene. Mothers teaching daughters to darn socks with yarn that perfectly matched original colors. Fathers showing sons how to resole shoes using leather scraps and patient craftsmanship. Grandmothers demonstrating the delicate art of invisible mending that could make tears disappear completely. This wasn't poverty, it was philosophy. The idea that functional items should be discarded simply because they showed wear seemed wasteful, almost immoral. Every possession represented investment, labor, resources that demanded respect through careful maintenance and creative repair. Children absorbed skills that connected them to their belongings in ways modern consumption can't replicate. They learned to value durability over novelty, function over fashion, careful use over careless replacement. Ripped clothing became puzzles to solve rather than excuses for shopping trips. The evening's work created unexpected family bonding. Hands stayed busy while conversations flowed. School stories shared over button replacement, neighborhood gossip exchanged during hem adjustments, family history passed down through demonstrations of traditional techniques. Communities developed informal networks of specialized skills. Mrs. Johnson could mend fine china, Mr. Williams handled leather repairs. The elderly Miss Thompson worked miracles with delicate fabrics. Neighbors shared expertise, tools, and materials, creating self-sufficient networks that required minimal outside resources. Modern throwaway culture would shock these Monday menders, discarding items after single seasons, replacing rather than repairing. They'd see our approach as moral failure, the abandonment of stewardship values that once made communities resilient and families resourceful. We've gained convenience, but lost the satisfaction of making things last, the skills that connected us intimately to our possessions, and the patience that transformed maintenance into meditation. These weren't just quaint customs from a simpler time, they were the threads that wove British communities into something stronger, warmer, and more resilient than anything we've managed to create since. Every tradition we've explored reveals the same beautiful truth. Our ancestors understood that the best parts of life happened slowly, together, with attention to detail and respect for ritual. Walking through modern Britain, you're surrounded by the ghosts of these gentler rhythms. Every corner shop that's become a chain store once knew your grandmother's name. Every front garden that's been paved for parking once grew food for the family table. Every hurried coffee break replaces afternoon tea ceremonies that once made ordinary Mondays feel sacred. If any of these forgotten traditions stirred something warm in your memory, perhaps an echo of Sunday best clothes or the taste of properly brewed afternoon tea, then you understand why these stories deserve preserving. They're not just historical curiosities. They're invitations to remember that life can be lived more slowly, more sweetly, with more attention to the small ceremonies that make ordinary days feel special. Share your own family memories in the comments below. What gentle traditions did your grandparents follow that created connection, marked time, or turned simple moments into something magical? Let's gather these stories together, because remembering how life used to feel might help us rediscover rhythms worth reclaiming. And if this journey through Britain's warmer past touched your heart, consider subscribing. There are countless more stories waiting to be rediscovered, traditions that remind us how beautiful life becomes when we choose patience over speed, community over convenience, and ritual over rushing.